Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name's Howard Brown. I live at 230 Lantern Lane East. I'm a resident of North Kingstown since 1999 and a homeowner. My daughter graduated North Kingstown High in 2000. I wanted to first state that several people of the group that I'm with, the North Kingstown Parents Against Indoctrination, were here in the June 22nd school committee meeting and expressed concern that the DEI subcommittee was not operating in a transparent manner. I'm glad to report that shortly thereafter it was announced that a web page had been established for the DEI subcommittee with agendas and with minutes anyway being posted. That was an important step. Unfortunately, we also learned quickly that that website that was set up had this logo that was an independent logo. It had nothing to do with North Kingstown School Department, but it's like there was its own school department inside the school department. This is a social justice logo, intersectionality, and several of those slogans. It was very inappropriate for being within the school. It implies that North Kingstown schools are turning out social justice advocates rather than literate citizens with a well-rounded education. In any case, our steering committee met with Greg and Lisa, and we want to thank them both, on July 29th, expressed a concern that that was a very inappropriate logo to appear on the website. I have other copies if anybody wants a copy of this. And it disappeared in a few days. And we were very glad that that happened. So that's the first of, so I have a question related to that, which is that we would like to know on whose authority that logo was placed on the website of the North Kingstown School Committee. I have two other questions. The second one is, it seems that the naming of the members of the DEI subcommittee has kind of been stacked. And we've asked for a response to the applications of all the applicants to the committee, not just those that were accepted. It has been made public, the responses of the people who were accepted, but we've been refused the information of the people who were rejected. And there's a feeling that there's a lack of balance on the subcommittee. We've actually now threatened to appeal to the Attorney General to get a profile of the rejected applicants, just so there's some more transparency in how this committee operates. We'd like to know what the committee is hiding. You know, like, who did they decide they don't want? How much time do I have?
That would be 3 minutes right there, so if you could wind up.
Sure. The other question has to do with an appearance of impropriety in terms of a proposal which has been considered by the DEI subcommittee without an RFP, and there have been discussions, apparently, according to the emails that we've got from our APRA request, between the assistant superintendent and a vendor and the certain school committee members. We'd like to get an explanation of what we see in those emails and related meeting minutes of the DEI subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next would be Suzanne Tingley.
CRT is a partisan propaganda and a communist theory used to divide people. It's ideological indoctrination that is harmful to students. This ideology manifests in the classroom in different ways, sometimes through overtly discriminatory practices such as segregation rebranded as affinity groups or racial shaming, sometimes through lesson plans that rework classic oppressors versus oppressed Marxist ideology with whiteness as the oppressive force rather than class. Sometimes it's through action civics as opposed to civics education, intended to make students into change agents who will undo systems of oppression. Sometimes it's as diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives intended to infuse school culture with CRT philosophy. CRT is deeply personal to me. This is a picture of my son and my nephew born weeks apart. This black baby and this white baby have played together and grown together. They have celebrated birthdays and holidays together. They've been baptized, received communion, and they will be confirmed in the same faith. This black boy and this white boy are friends, they are family, and they love each other. Our children are not racist. They don't see color. CRT is teaching what should not exist and makes our children victims and destroys their hopes for future prosperity, harmony, and equality. Instead of uniting each other, CRT will fracture my family, friends, with tension and mistrust. CRT divides with no plan for reconciliation. I asked for transparency at the last school committee meeting. This is far from what is happening in our schools. CRT is training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe their country and our history. CRT imposes controversial political views on students and punishes those who don't agree. There have been 0 complaints of racism in our schools, and yet you're planning to spend $90,000 on an equity audit instead of addressing the drug, alcohol, and vaping problems in our schools. You're funding your political ideology instead of addressing that our boys consistently score lower in reading, have lower graduation rates, and fewer go on to college. You're ignoring the socioeconomic gap in learning. CRT is a solution in search of a problem. The school committee goals regarding DEI should be reevaluated at a well-publicized public forum. At that forum, all available data should be released upon which informed judgments can be made as to the proper goals of the school department. No recommendations coming out of the DEI subcommittee should be acted on until all of the 2021 and 2022 goals of the school committee have gained strong consensus among NK residents. Resist CRT. As gatekeepers of our children's education, hold back this harmful teaching that can twist children's minds to hate one another and our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Brian Odell.
Thank you. Brian Odell, 152 Salisbury Avenue. And I have 2 kids that went through the system, and a little granddaughter that will be soon coming in, and a little boy that will be coming soon. Thanks. Facts matter. Some would have us believe that systematic racism is widespread in North Kingstown, even in our schools. That information comes from a tank survey that suggests that 88% of its respondents have experienced or witnessed racism in North Kingstown. That sounds quite disturbing until you understand the data. The problem is that even TANK fully admits this, their survey is seriously flawed. There is a very small number of respondents that are far from representative of a cross-section of North Kingstown's 27,000 residents. Clearly, no research professional would ever stand behind the results of this survey or purport them to be reliable or useful in any way. Therefore, they must be dismissed and never considered for decision-making purposes. The problem is that these results are promoted by TANK and leveraged by the DEI subcommittee to help justify a $91,000 root cause audit to find more racism and then make sweeping changes to the school curriculum. This is unwise and unnecessary. The truth is, real data already exists that shows we have no widespread issues with racism in our town or in our schools. For example, the NK School Department and NK Police Department have each reported only one related complaint in recent years. We are hardly a flashpoint. However, there are some serious problems we should not overlook. Existing, reliable, state-generated data tells us some very important things about North Kingstown schools. There is a disparity in outcomes for students from low-income households across all races. There is a disparity of outcomes for boys versus girls. There's a disparity in outcomes for Hispanics who sometimes struggle with English. There's also a rising drug, alcohol, and vaping problem in the high school. I'm sure you're well aware of these. The question is, what are we doing about them? These are the real problems, not DEI. The DEI subcommittee is a solution searching for a problem. Let's redirect those efforts and funds towards the most glaring problems. Abolish the DEI subcommittee. Facts matter.
Thank you. Next would be Heather Rourke.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Heather Rourke, and this is my husband, John Rourke. We live at 77 Fairfield Drive in North Kingstown. As a North Kingstown resident, parent, and Rhode Island educator, I would like to express my concerns over the recent curriculum changes laced with critical race theory ideology. From the early elementary grades, the Wit and Wisdom curriculum paints an anti-American picture. The few minutes I have to speak here does not afford me the opportunity to present all of my concerns, but to start, as early as grade 3, students will now be taught to despise the Statue of Liberty as, quoting from Wit and Wisdom curriculum materials, not a symbol of democratic government or Enlightenment ideals, but rather a source of pain. Instead of representing freedom and justice for all, the Statue of Liberty is a reminder that this is only America's professed identity as a just and free society for all people regardless of race. Students will be taught these are romantic notions and a hope that does not pertain to African Americans. While a grade 4 curriculum module does include a brief biographical article on Anne Frank, the focus of this unit is split between a science study of the circulatory system and how figurative language and carefully chosen words can communicate powerful emotions. While this is true, I find it alarming. An in-depth study of the Holocaust or Holocaust literature seems to have been completely removed from the upper elementary and middle school curriculums. Wit and Wisdom curriculum examines World War II in grade 7, much like the EL education curriculum used at Davisville Middle School last year. Unfortunately, instead of learning about the heinous genocide of more than 6 million European Jews and millions of others, these curriculums choose to only tell the story of Japanese Americans in internment camps. I am not opposed to including a look at the internment camps, but this should certainly not overshadow the atrocities of the German death camps. 75 million people died in World War II, 3% of the world's population. We aren't going to talk about that? On the district's website, under the curriculum links, parents are only able to see an overview of a skills focus from Sirico. When will this be updated to reflect what is actually being taught? And where can parents find a listing of content, topics, and texts our children would be learning from this coming school year? What curriculum changes are being made at the high school level, and what curriculum materials have been or are being purchased? Parents have a right to know what is being presented to our children prior to their exposure, not after the fact. I would like to know how the school's administrators, faculty, and school committee plan on addressing and rectifying these issues and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ramona Bessinger.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Ramona Bessinger. I am a teacher and a mother. I want to tell you all
If you
that
could, sorry, just state your address as well. Sorry.
Jamestown. The whole address? 437 David
Thank you.
Avenue in Jamestown. Okay? Let me tell you why I'm here to speak. I'm asking for call to action to remove Jennifer Lima from the DEI subcommittee as she is actively encouraging harassment, intimidation, and bullying of decent citizens concerned to uphold the quality of education already embedded in our NK schools and Jamestown schools. Her organization, TANK, openly assumes the good people of North Kingstown and the area, the teachers, the children, and the excellent curriculum are racist. That is not true. Jen Lima uses her role as school committee member to intimidate and bully people into compliance as she needs to go. Our vetted historical and literary curriculum should not be replaced, as it is already diverse. It is already inclusive. Many inspiring and irreplaceable literary voices and historical voices heroically surfaced over the years. These voices belong to the canon of great American authors, not solely because of their race, but because they deftly address the perennial concerns of all humanity. To name a few: Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Phyllis Wheatley, the poets of the Harlem Renaissance, Martin Luther King, James Baldwin, Maya Angelou, and so many others. Further, I'm here to express my very important concern for the students of all colors. Specifically, I am concerned for the children who are not being properly served by this highly race-focused education that distorts history and our society. We owe it to the children not to stereotype them. We owe it to them not to shame them or teach them to hate others based on their skin color. I stand by my position, and I hope that NK Schools places children before the curriculum mandates dictated to NK by the Rhode Island Department of Education and by political ideology. The proposed curriculum mandates coming from RIDE to North Kingston will further weaponize our children, shame our children, and divide our children based on skin color. Further, the proposed curriculum platforms will erase an objective look at American history and culture. The time is now to speak out and share the truth about critical race theory and the subsequent abuse of our minor children, not only in NK, but across the country. Maya Angelou said, "There is no greater agony than not being able to bear the story inside you." With this new curriculum platform, NK Schools, our children will no longer experience the rigorous, diverse education they are entitled to. You may think this new anti-racist curriculum platform represents African Americans and an anti-racist agenda, but it does not. It is about power and control. It is not transparent. You are not being transparent. This new curriculum platform proposed by RIDE will wipe out a comprehensive lens that teaches students objectivity, American history, American literature, world literature, multicultural literature, and
If you could please wrap up.
rigor. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Elizabeth Finneran, I believe.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Alexa Johnson at 39 Kristen Lane. I'm a rising senior at North Kingstown High School, but I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Jacob Sedor, who was last year's student body president, and he just graduated, and he was the class of 2021. All right. As a student who just graduated from North Kingstown High School and only ever attended schools in the North Kingstown School Department, it is very concerning to me that someone who never attended North Kingstown schools and has children who did not attend North Kingstown schools their entire life, and someone who doesn't even have a degree in education or any major related to it, should be telling our school committee what it is that is wrong in our school curriculum and what is or is not an urgent concern. I can tell you firsthand that I have several minority friends who have not only scoffed at the creation of the DEI subcommittee, but feel demeaned by the creation of it, as well as another group in our town named TANK, or Towards an Anti-Racist North Kingstown. They feel that these people are acting as though they are incapable of taking controls of their own lives, and they feel that there are far larger issues in our town. If you don't want to take it from me, take it from them. I'd be more happy to put you in contact with one of the students who feels this way. Furthermore, if you want to talk about what should and should not be a concern in not only North Kingstown schools, but schools across the state and country, maybe we should focus on things such as the drug crisis in our schools. All across Rhode Island, students are abusing drugs and alcohol at alarming rates. I've witnessed it firsthand as a student in our school department. High percentages of students drink, vape, smoke, and more. Some of these students do things far worse than what I've already stated. You don't need a $90,000 audit to examine our school's curriculum. There are more than enough students of all racial and economic backgrounds who are willing to have a conversation with you about issues in our schools. These are real students who know our schools, who live in our town, who experience these issues firsthand. Please talk to them. You can do it for free. You don't need to spend $90,000 to find the problems at our schools. If Mrs. Lima truly cares about our students, she would listen to them. Instead of stating, this is what our students want with no proof to back it up, maybe ask, what do our students want? It's been far too long that students have not had a say in their own education. If you want to prove the fact that you don't care about what students think, then don't take this advice. If you want to prove to everyone, however, that you do have your own personal agenda, keep doing what you're doing and throwing money at issues without even consulting your student body first. Those were the words of Jacob Cedar. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I did speak on behalf of Jacob Cedar, so I would like to take this time to speak on behalf of my own thoughts. It's great to hear some support, because not only that, but I feel like as someone with maybe some differing views in my school, I have to be silent. I have to pretend to think an ideal way in order to please my students and get the grades that I work hard for. I know Mr. Auger, my mom emailed you about this book, an AP language and composition that we were required to read as well. It was by Tanisha Coates, Between the World and Me. I only read the first 26 pages because I had to put that book down. It was the most anti-American thing I think I've ever read in my entire life, and that, I believe, is the start of CRT, critical race theory. Teaching people to hate America and everything that it stands for. I look back at Martin Luther King Jr., he's one of my idols. I'm not a racist person. He's one of my idols, and I believe that he is fantastic, and he would not have wanted this. He wouldn't want people to look back in hatred and look in the future in hatred as well. He'd want people to look in the past and realize how far we've come and love America for that. And I believe that critical race theory would not accomplish this. Thank you.
Thank you.